balance of the Kakin Empire is maintained by all facets of society. One half of this is the public, light side of the Kakin royal family. However, the other is the extensive underground society of the warring mafia factions. And both groups are currently involved in a struggle for supremacy, the succession contest for the light side, and something far more terrifying on our dark side. Because a war has broken out between the three primary mafia families that rule the Kakin underworld, each of them directly financed by one of the current royal princes. These families are the Char R, the Jiyu, and the Heoli. And as important functional members of Kakin society, these mafia families are also being carted to the Dark Continent. And en route to the Dark Continent, these three mafia families control all traffic between tiers 3 to 5. And this is because there simply are not enough Kakin royal soldiers or members of the Hunter Association to maintain the order of 200,000 people. So much of that has been, unofficially of course, entrusted to the mafia factions. At the very bottom on tier 5 we have the Char R family, who are helmed by boss Broccoli, a man who has very much embraced his name with his broccoli hairstyle, and he is seemingly obsessed with taxidermy for reasons. However, you might notice that he has two particularly nasty scars running across his face, and this is because Broccoli is actually the illegitimate half-brother of King Nasibi, and all illegitimate royal children are permanently scarred in this way at birth in order to signify that they have no claim to the throne, with the disfigurement also being the aesthetic encouragement for remaining in the shadows for their entire lives, as should they ever become a little bit too public, then they will be eliminated. This scarring system is considered an act of great charity, a kindness done to children who should otherwise be killed on the spot because of the threat they represent to the monarchy. Back to mafia families, each of them also possess their own second-in-command underboss. In the case of the Char R, this would be Kenny Wang, a man with a serial killer's cold enthusiasm for violence, and so is a big fan of Heaven's Arena matches. He's even quite familiar with Hisoka's fights and his status as a floor master. And Kenny also comes equipped with a bizarre phenomenon named Frosty Grin Smile Zero. And it's not confirmed if this is a Nen ability or not yet, but it does have the classic naming scheme of one, and it's said that anyone Kenny Wang smiles at ends up dead. The family overall have a very strong connection to laborers and their trade as commodities, which range from legal like food and I guess other things, but also to illegal like a wide assortment of drugs, which may very well be why their benefactor is 7th Prince Luzerus, because he's quite interested in all of the drugs. In total, the Char R family consists of 250 members, one of which is my personal favorite mafia member, Sudonke, a Char R supervisor and a huge Phantom Troop fanboy who plans on asking for their autographs, but at a more convenient time, as he has to set a strong example for those working under him. That's the Char R family. They're the first major family we came across. However, the one we've spent the most time with are now the Jiyu family, led by a man named Onyo Longbao, whose head is somehow shaped like an onion, and he is a glutton, always seen eating or about to eat or thinking about eating. His doctor is apparently very worried about his diet, and that's not me making a joke, this is a plot point in the manga. And as you may have noticed, Oniya also possesses the signature double scar because he is also an illegitimate brother of King Nasibi. The Jiyu happen to be funded by 3rd Prince Zanglei, which may very well be why they're considered the most powerful mafia faction in terms of both numbers and finances, the latter of which I suppose are also numbers. But Zanglei is an incredibly high-ranking prince, and so he has more resources to devote to them, with the Jiyu repaying that investment through their business, which is mostly human trafficking, and other assorted activities that the Jiyu family would like to keep secret and have the power to do so with the sponsor of this video, Surfshark VPN. A VPN is a tool that encrypts your internet traffic and hides your IP so that no prying eyes can infiltrate your online activities, or whatever they may be. Not my business. Not anyone's business, that's the point. So let's talk about discrimination, specifically price discrimination, and the fact that some websites actually use your location to tailor prices for their goods or services. I personally know this as Australia tax, the phenomenon that digital-only games and other media just so happen to cost more here than in any other Western country. And they cost more for some reason. Well, some reason isn't good enough for some people, including some me. And that's where Surfshark VPN comes in very handy, as I can just pop over to the UK for a bit, do a bunch of shopping, and be back in time for the kangaroos in my front yard at 5 p.m. That's actually a real thing that used to happen when I used to live in the country. And I don't think you realize just how intimidating kangaroos are until like 50 of them rock up at your doorstep. So I'd prefer to keep that doorstep hidden where possible, alongside my online activities and privacy with Surfshark, which you can and should download through my link in the description, and absolutely use my promo code NewWorld to get an extra 4 months free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And thanks so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, as it's because of partners like them that we're able to bring you the best fictional hunter content possible as often as possible. So definitely give them a go, but for now it's back to you me. The GU's underboss is a man named Henry Bigandufno, a conjurer who has a Nen ability named Biohazard, a very cool power where Henry can turn any object into a living creature, which was initially displayed to us when he transformed guns into snakes, and then the gun snakes shot the soldiers who were holding them. It's pretty wild stuff. But my favorite use of the ability so far was Henry turning handcuffs into pigeons, and then after dealing with one guy with his pigeon cuffs, Henry delivered one of my favorite lines in Hunter x Hunter to the remaining forces, which was, "Come at me, I have plenty more pigeons." This is one of those abilities that would be absolutely awful in the hands of someone who did not wield it to perfection. Because what's going on here, it's not really impressive by any means. Henry doesn't have this colossal quantity of aura to draw from, and ultimately his Hatsu is only capable of using subtle, arguably mundane everyday objects and creatures. So it takes a true Nen expert to turn this into a frightening yet engaging power. And directly under Henry's command are two specialist agents named Zakro Custard and Lynch Fulboko. Zakro is a manipulator with an ability named Bloody Mary, which allows him to manipulate his own blood. And he can even change the properties of it to construct type blood restraints, although he can't use too much because bodies, they quite famously require blood to survive. So he's very limited in how much he can use at any given time. But what's really cool / creepy, I guess, depending on your perspective, is that Zakro can use his blood as teeny tiny scouts, with each droplet even being given a pair of eyes. However, this effect runs out somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes, as the aura depletes because the blood has been separated from Zakro's body for too long. Then alongside him we have Lynch Fulboko, an emitter who uses a Hatsu called Body and Soul, the basic effect of which is a truth punch. Lynch emits aura to a target via a punch, then asks them a question which the target has to give an honest answer to, and to ensure that an answer is in fact given, it is delivered to Lynch telepathically and involuntarily by said target. And we've also seen another really cool ability from a former GU member. This one is called Zombie Girl, and it's a remaining post-mortem Nen ability of a former GU member named Misha. After the GU family kills someone, Misha's murdered body manifests to dispose of the target, with Zombie Girl possessing that person and manipulating their corpse so that they can go and just be quietly gotten rid of. So all in all, the GU function as a horrifyingly competent and efficient family unit. The Char R, they've got more of that angry thug vibe going for them, whereas the GU are much more subtle and suave. And the GU family are currently in command of Tier 4 of the Black Whale, and have recently formed an alliance with the Char R for balance-related reasons. So balance, that's something very important we should talk about. The key role of the three Mafia factions is to preserve balance. Because while each family does serve as mortal enemies to the other two, there is an unspoken understanding and cooperation between them for the sake of maintaining peace and power, mainly the latter. Onio Longbao once said, "If a resource is limited, the more it needs to be divided, the less of a share you get. For the haves to keep having, the majority need to get the short end of the stick. That is balance." And even all-out war is conducted with this idea of balance. There's a proper etiquette for war which was cartoonishly depicted by Togashi, with a member needing to ask permission from their boss to murder a member of another opposing Mafia family. After which point the boss then negotiates the life of the desired target with the head of the targeted family, and they come to some sort of arrangement for money, other commodities, or even a life-for-life exchange. And for the sake of balance, both the Char R and GU families have prioritized finding Hisoka, because they view the Phantom Troop as a huge threat to balance, and so they want to control the situation as best they can. Underboss Kenny Wang described the Phantom Troop as divorced from balance, unresolved with no allegiances. They move how they want and they have the power to execute on it. As I feared, they are a risk factor that must be eliminated. To reiterate though, these factions are only allowed to exist and funded in secret on the strict condition that they remain loyal to the monarchy, which recently one family has not been doing. Bad family, bad. As shortly before the events of this arc, the Haley family was subject to an internal coup. This was staged by a junior member named Morena Prudeau, who convinced 23 other members to join her in slaughtering the rest of the Haley family, including its unnamed boss, who is now named because the new boss is Morena herself. Why did she do this? Well, for reasons. Morena has stated that she doesn't care about anything in this world, including herself. So Morena's goal is simple yet grand. She wishes to destroy the world. A world which Morena sees as inherently unfair, contradictory, and completely irredeemable, to the point where it simply needs to be erased from existence. And Morena doesn't just feel this way in relation to the actions of humans. She genuinely despises everything on the planet. The animal food chain, natural disasters, etc. If you can name a thing, then Morena hates it. And this philosophy was born from her very own existence. You'll definitely notice that Morena also carries the double razor blade scars because she is an illegitimate child of King Nasabi. And pondering her own existence, Morena came to question everything, literally everything. Starting with the idea that kings selfishly stick their bits in anything that moves, and then fear the progeny that they produce. Then they scar the children and forgive the child for existing, which was their fault in the first place. So while the other factions strive to maintain balance, Morena sees the world as inherently unbalanced. unbalanced. There's nothing to protect and everything to destroy. And Morena plans on achieving this grand ambition through her Nen ability Contagion, the effect of which is by transferring her saliva, Morena can infect up to 23 people, with the infected now becoming players in the Contagion game. And to make progress in this game, the players need to level up, and the way they do that is by killing. The life of a regular civilian is worth 1 level, the life of a Nen user is worth 10 levels, and killing a prince of the Kakin Empire grants a whopping 50 levels, with each level boosting the aura output of the player, and also granting them ready-to-use Nen abilities at certain milestones. And ultimately, after reaching level 100, the infected becomes a member 0, and is now able to infect 23 more people. And with this motivation, by 1 week into the Dark Continent voyage, the 23 Haoli players had killed over 300 people, murders which were all performed without any direct evidence leading back to them. In this regard, the Haoli have actually set up a disturbingly efficient murder farm, where one member lures victims into a room, then uses another member's ability to teleport them into another room, a room which was constructed entirely by Nen from a third member, and here they're slaughtered swiftly by any Haoli members waiting for easy levels. And in the case of any undesirables managing to get in, there's even one member who has an unbeatable ability to summon giant toy guards to eject people without violence. The main strength of the Haoli family is their rapidly snowballing and extremely wide set of abilities. Abilities that can be used in effective combination with one another. However, their main weakness is their inexperience with Nen and aura use. Individually, every member we've seen in action so far is pretty rubbish, but as a collective, they have the potential to overwhelm anyone, much like a swarm. And historically, the Haoli family's benefactor was 4th Prince Zaradnik, which makes sense because this family used to specialize in the trade of extremely rare black market goods for the hyper-wealthy. However, Zaradnik, he became very wary of Morena after the sudden coup, and he's only become even more short on patience with her because Morena, she has this problem, right? The problem is that she's a woman. And Zaradnik's complex with women make him jump to violent thoughts whenever the topic of Morena comes up. Technically, Morena's also Zaradnik's half-sister, and he doesn't have an amazing relationship with his siblings either. But Morena doesn't care. Again, she doesn't care about anything, and her vision for the future no longer requires the backing of a Kakin prince. In fact, her ideal world very much excludes him. And currently, the Haoli are sort of in command of Tier 3. I say that because they're causing more chaos than providing order, with the goal of turning everyone into a player in their game or to be murder farmed for levels. And also, their Tier 3 presence is very much for show because their true base is located on Tier 2. Before we move on, I should also say that minor mafia factions do also exist. It's not just the big 3. In fact, the very first mafia group we encountered were the Banduo family, a handful of dude bros who made their base in a passageway to the Tier 5 dining hall, demanding a toll from anyone who wanted to pass. And they were running quite a successful business for all of 5 minutes before the Phantom Troop got hungry. The reason why these smaller factions are allowed to exist is because they essentially serve as micro money farms for the large families, who take 90% of their income in exchange for not brutally murdering them on the spot. But that aside, here's how the situation between the families is currently playing out. After 7 days of killing, the order was officially given by the Char R and GU families that they were going to war with the Haoli and to kill Morena Prudo as swiftly as possible. So the current plan is to use the Phantom Troop as best they can to kill as many Haoli members, and ideally even Morena herself. And if the Phantom Troop fail, then that's also fine, because the Char R and the GU ultimately plan on killing them as well, again for the sake of balance. So they want the Haoli and the troop to destroy each other. And to ensure that, Hisoka was found and offered a pass to Tier 1 by Henry in order to keep him from acting as a wildcard until their balance issues were solved. The idea being that after the Haoli were dealt with, then Hisoka could be unleashed to finish off any surviving troop members. But with the help of Nobunaga, Henry was able to plant a transmitter in the hidden Haoli base, determining that it was on Tier 2, which is actually a big deal because it means that their base is within the designated grounds of the succession contest, and that everything is about to converge on the upper levels. The princes, the mafia families, Kurapika, the Phantom Troop, and Hisoka are all about to come together, and yes, I do mean that in exactly the way that Hisoka would like it to mean.